We have two keynote sessions planned for this afternoon. Let me first invite our esteemed speaker, Durnnian, Chief of Education of the UNICEF India. Mr. Durnnian is an accomplished and chief senior manager and leader in the non-profit organization management sector. His expertise extends in various domains, including intercultural communication, sustainable development, corporate social responsibility, capacity development, and program evaluation. Previously, Terry was the lead technical advisor for the World Bank EQIP project, where he effectively managed and implemented projects while strengthening the planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation capabilities of government counterparts. Mr. Durnnian holds a Master of Education degree specializing in literacy from the Mount St. Vincent University, and as an educationist and a senior leader, has been driving positive change to make a lasting impact. Let me humbly invite Mr. Durnnian to come on the stage and address the audience.
Good afternoon. Is anybody still awake from lunch? Is it here? Okay, no problem. Probably what they missed from the introduction, basically I'm a teacher, plain and simple. And I was thinking today, looking at the technology, when I began teaching technology, which was an OTP. If anyone remembers and knows what that is, that was high tech. Who knows what an OTP is? Raise your hand. Now we're telling how old we are. Overhead projector. And I remember flipping that up for my students to see for the first time. So my presentation or speech today is really looking at, maybe I'm standing too close, is really looking at learning equity and digital transformation. And I feel like I'm doing maybe a remedial class from Professor Acosta's presentation yesterday a bit, so there is some similarities. So it's good reinforcement. When we're talking about learning equity, what do we mean? Every girl and boy, and sometimes I like to say girls and boys because often we just lump it all together as children and not to think who those children actually are, has equitable access to quality education regardless of their socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, or ability, or anything else. So they're in learning, they're in school, and engaged. It's not enough just to say, I've arrived, I'm sitting, but they're learning. And then we come to digital as an extra dimension. This means providing all children with the necessary tools and resources to succeed in the digital age, including technology, reliable internet connection, and digital literacy skills, ideally supported by enabled, trained teachers. So we have two challenges here. We had the original challenge of simple equity, and we had an additional challenge, equity in relation to digital learning, or digital enabled learning. And when we're really thinking about leaving no one behind, we need to think of leaving no one behind almost in two senses. The traditional way that children are actually engaged in learning, but also actually having access to digital tools to enable and expand their learning. So when we talk about digital transformation or learning equity, we can't not but discuss education transformation. It can't be business as normal. When you try to bring digital aspects, tech-enabled, it changes what's happening in the classroom. You need to change. You can't do and repeat what you've been doing in past ways. Because we already know, globally, children are having challenges reading. 70% of children aged 10 in low or middle income countries are not able to read a single paragraph. And then we're asking them to do digital. We're throwing digital into it. Children who are not learning basic or foundational skills, how are they going to go on and learn more advanced skills that comes with advancing in school, preparing for life after school? So we need to, nearly 3/4 of youth in 92 countries are off track. Skills for employment. We're looking at transferable, digital, job-specific skills. And that all begins in school. From age 3, you're beginning this journey in education. But digital can make a difference. Alternative pathways of learning. We're looking at currently 222 million children are affected by emergencies and protracted crisis. 244 million are out of school. How do we reach them? Digital solutions provides a tool. And I'll stress tool because it's not a solution, it's a tool. It's an enabler, if we choose to use it as an enabler. But also looking at in school, it complements and improves what's happening in school. So it needs to build on good teaching and learning practice and expand on it, enhance it, and strengthen it.
Could you use this?
Okay, is that better? Okay, is that better or worse? I don't hear me, so that's always a good sign. So we're looking at skill empowerment of children for the 21st century. And a lot of times when we're talking about this, we're not talking about teachers. We're talking about digitally enabled classrooms. It's the interaction between students and teachers, which is very, very important, and how teachers are supporting and having the skills to support that. So the 3 points of transition in education. Age 5, children are ready to begin school globally. In India, we know it's age 3. 3 years of pre-primary or Anilwadi centers, and then they go into early grades. And then age 10, acquiring foundational literacy and numeracy. Very, very crucial. In India, we have Nupam Barak. It's so important the government has set up a special mission because they recognize if children don't learn the basic skills, it impacts all future learning. And then ready for life and work. So how do we give children the skills, transferable, 21st century skills, if you want to call it, job-ready skills, to enable them to go from school, vocations outside of school. And digital technology can provide an answer, or provide, not an answer, but can support these processes. At early grades, we're looking, or pre-primary, parental resource apps, guidance apps. And in India, you have those already in a number of states, and supporting parents with messages, playful learning at home, what to do, how to engage. In the classroom, digital solutions, Diksha, national platforms. But these are reliant on teachers' ability to transaction and support learning. Because we know in classrooms often you may have a computer or a school, it may never be used, or only used for administration. I was very amazed, the gentleman yesterday talking about, I think it's kite and Kerala. I mean, Kerala is really, if you look at Indian example, it's probably the highest in terms of technology in schools. But in India, you have a Kerala, and then you have a Bihar. So there's a huge gulf between those two states and a lot of states in terms of technology and children's access for learning. And that extends up into 18 when children leave school. So there's potentials and challenges. Hundreds of millions of children reached for remote learning during COVID. India is no exception. Around the world, this happened. Children went online. Teachers reached out. It was amazing, the commitment and the engagement. Mobile technology increasingly ubiquitous. It expanded in India and other countries. The global expenditure for EdTech is projected to be 404 billion, make sure I get my B's and my M's right, billion by 2024. The vignette around that, the children at the lowest quintile don't really benefit from that money. It goes to the highest quintile of wealth. So we need to look at where the investments are going and who's benefiting, and equitable investments in technology. Now, these are all potentials, and then the challenges: low quality, inequalities in access to digital learning. Girls for one. A lot of parents don't want their girls to be online, have computers. It's a corrupting influence. How do we change minds? How do we have those discussions? How do you bring technology in remote areas? This progress here, hundreds of millions, after COVID, children went back to the classroom. People took a step back from digital in a classroom. Students and teachers. It's now happening as an extension outside the classroom. And this needs to be addressed. The system can support digital learning in the classroom. And digital platforms accessible for children with disabilities. It's very, very important. And then we heard presentations yesterday. There's really big changes happening. It's really how do we get it out to parents and children and teachers. And 70% of platforms do not offer offline. So you have to be connected to the internet to benefit. Extra money. So the cost effectiveness to be online and access these wonderful opportunities that exist needs to be addressed. Okay. I'm not sure why there's an empty slide. Oh, yes I do. Okay, for some reason they don't like my slides. There's been a revolt. I always say I'm not very technically, but I have no fault in me. I put the slide together. It is there in my computer. So digital solutions, which are missing here, is looking at, it can be an equalizer. It can make a difference. We saw, as I mentioned, good examples from yesterday, people applying technology to equalize access and reduce the equity. But how do we bring this out? How do we scale this up and out through the system so more children benefit? And focus on the hardest to reach children. Not simply the middle class, upper middle class, but really the children in remote areas that's harder for them to access. And they're accessing good quality content. Content in their own language. How many languages of instruction, formal language instruction, does India have? It's a quiz. How many? 1? 15? 22? So we have 2 choices, no more options. Once, twice, 22. If you look at the recent foundational learning study, they baselined 20 languages of instruction in India and benchmarked them for reading with comprehension. But saying that, which is wonderful, there are hundreds of other languages children speak which are not mediums of instruction. And it's important that that's taken into account, that their language is welcome and accepted in the classroom. And in the learning environment itself supports diversity. So it welcomes girls, children with disabilities or different abilities are welcome. And also, children are more socially stigmatized. And how do we do that? So technology can be an equalizer if it's used and applied. Now we're back to my slide. Okay, and it's very important to work holistically within the system to do this. How do we not just do one project, one small example? How do we scale up holistically? Because when we talk about education, we know that children don't learn in silos. There's education, there's health, nutrition, all those things they need. And we need to think holistically, that idea when we're looking at digital learning or digital enabled learning. We need to look at the connection divide, device divide, the digital skill divide, and social divide. How do we address these in the specific digital barriers to equity, but also addressing traditional inequities in learning? So you need to actually address both ways so children can really benefit, teachers can benefit, parents can benefit from tech-enabled learning. Good. I'm a bit surprised now when the slides go through. So at UNICEF, when we're talking about the principles of inclusive digital learning, these are some of the things we're looking at in our support. And primarily we work with governments. For example, India, our main partner, is a national state governments in terms of supporting. I'm told the other day, I shouldn't use the word support. We technically engage with ideas to improve the delivery of education. So in schools, non-formal emergency contexts, applying digital, online, but also places where there's no connectivity. What do we do? And there are solutions. There's a hub model that's been piloted in India. You have a hub and you have computers connected to that hub. So you don't need internet connection. High tech versus low tech. In India, during the pandemic, what was the main mode of learning? Was it computers? Was the main tool for learning? What? Mobiles? Which application? WhatsApp. Number one, it's the main sending messages, nuggets, I'm told. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a nuggets being sent. It's, lesson plans, correction. That was the main communication during learning. And the second one is looking at TV, broadcasting things on TV, because everyone had a TV. Radio, less so. Teachers and school leaders and parents, these need to be all involved. When you talk about digital transformation, you need to bring all those people together because they have an impact on the effectiveness. Digital resources, I mentioned, of quality, and also making sure that it meets the needs of the children. And the children in this community or in this classroom may not have the same needs as children in the next community, in the next classroom. So they need to be able to adapt. Opportunities to acquire literacy and digital skills. Going beyond technology, holistic, cross-sectoral, and needs-based. So you can't see digital technology in a small box. It needs to be connected to what's happening. I was talking at the beginning, you need to look at education transformation, not simply digital. We're going to address equity. And traditional skills as well as 21st century skills. Because often people talk about 21st century skills. It's active learning. Students are learning by doing. It's something I used 30 years ago when I was teaching school. Teaching a multi-grade classroom, and half my children were non-native English speakers. So you need to have them engaged. You need to actively find out what they need and respond to their needs. And at the global level, UNICEF is working with UNESCO, looking at a gateway. It's one of the 5 global education's flagship initiatives that came out of the General Assembly on Transforming Education Summit last September. And this is aiming to look at what's happening globally, looking at best practice, where the gaps, where the good examples, a dashboard to diagnose strengths and limitations of learning platforms, a knowledge hub so people can put evidence, share evidence, what works, what doesn't work, because you learn often more sometimes from what hasn't worked than simply from what has worked, if you apply the lessons. Looking at champion countries, highlight good practice, like we do here with India. We're looking at Diksha. We provide opportunities for NCRT, people from India, the National Council for Education, Research and Training, if I get all my acronyms correct in sequence. So they present to our office innovation. They present to other countries so they can gain from good practice. And looking at global norms and standards. What is good? Looking at what is a good digital product. Looking at standards and creating good content. So if you're ordering content, if it meets standards, you know what you're getting. But you're looking at the digital transformation, education transformation, you really cannot do it alone. We need to expand digital learning solutions and content to every student and teacher. How do we do this? Across geographies and demographics. How do we work with government decision makers, industry, civil society? How can they come together? Because you're looking at education transformation, digital transformation. You need to bring all these together to the table. The government in terms of the schools, the parents, because they're interested in what students are learning, but also private sector industry in terms of the solutions they have and can support. How do we create programs and strategies to scale up the best and the fastest possible based on evidence? How do we engage young people? Young people know what they like and what they don't like. To engage them actively in learning, bring them in as partners in developing solutions. It'd be more effective in the long term because it's directly, they have a voice into the solution and it's addressing their needs. And looking at the focus, affordable accessibility, ecosystem, enablement, digital solutions, learning solutions, and digital content. All items I've mentioned before, which are very, very important. So moving forward, what we need to do, speed and scale and be inclusive and based on evidence. Innovations that leapfrog. I think this presentation yesterday, how fast things are, I know it's Duncan, how fast things are changing, engaging. I think it's Facebook, Instagram. It's happening really fast. Your oh, sorry. I'll put my footnote in there. I correct it. What your grandchildren, what your children, the knowledge that they're processing, I mean, even for me, I just stand back. I'm amazed. And to deliver education in a new way, we need to change what happens in classrooms, the engagement between teachers and students. It can't be chalk and talk. That active learning, active engagement, learning by doing, using technology for that as a tool, and technology is a tool for better learning, not something a reward. Oh, you're a good student, I'll let you on the computer. It should be a tool to support learning, and teachers need that capacity and the confidence. You need to be bolder. If we're going to reach the SDG 4 targets by 2030, we need to be a lot more bolder in what we're doing. Dare to be different. Dare to try new ideas. And from the sessions I've seen, there's been really good ideas. How do we scale that up and bring it to more children and really make digital transformation, impact and equity, and looking at wider education transformation? Thank you.
Our sincere thanks to Mr. Durnnian, and we look forward, sir, for your continued interaction with us through the C20 framework. I would like to invite Dr. Krishnashri Achyutan, Dean of PG Programs from Amrita Vidyapeetham, and also the Center Head for Cybersecurity, to please honor our guest, Terry Durnnian, with a memento. Thank you so much, sir. Our next eminent speaker is Professor AnilSahasrabudhe. Sahasrabudhe ji is the chairman, National Education Technology Forum of India. As an eminent academician and engineer who served as you can see, he's very humble. He doesn't want me to talk much about him. But sir is truly an icon in the education space. And in his illustrious career of 31 years, he has held so many important positions, academic, research, and administrative. I will hand over the floor to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's very exciting that in the morning sessions we have learned about various aspects of either skilling, education, technology, and even from UNESCO, various facets of how digital transformation is useful, but still there are lots of challenges, and speaking about divide that exists because of various issues, they are all covered. I'm going to speak about some of the initiatives taken by the Government of India in order that we will overcome these various types of divides which we are talking about and encourage and enable our people in terms of education and digital transformation. We all know that education has been one of the bedrocks for human civilization. And that's why from ages we have been talking about education from the schools. In India we had the Gurukul system, to the residential university of Takshila, Nalanda, and so on. Despite all of that, in the modern era, we started with chalk and talk, or the blackboard system, to overhead projector system, to LCD system, to finally now various types of digital modes, and including internet and MOOC system which has come in place. But what is important is we learned lessons from the pandemic. Pandemic was the one when all the education in the classroom, physical mode, came to a grinding halt, and we had no choice but to go for online education. And the benefits which we achieved through the online, they are remaining and they are going to stay. And that's why today we talk about not just digital education or online education, we talk about what we call flipped classrooms. We talk about what is known as blended learning, part of the education being in the physical space, part of the education being in the online space. So both the spaces are required to be used for effective transformation that we are talking all about. Learning, in fact, starts from birth, from the lap of the mother to the grave till the death. And therefore, one of the most important things is formal education. Although we go to the school for about 15 years to 20 years, we spend the time in college and then come out. But the informal education goes on while we are in the school, while at home, while in the society, while in the job, while we are performing outside. And that's why this informal education is to be captured, number one. And number two, the technologies are getting changed so fast. In fact, the acceleration at which the new things are coming in, that at such space, they will be skyrocketing. And in the process, many a times we often talk about students who are graduating from the institutions and universities. By the time they graduate, what they learned in the first year and second year is already outdated. And therefore, they have to start relearning, they need to start reskilling. And what else can be possible other than digital transformation to make them to be upfront? Otherwise, they will all be lost in the new era where new things are coming and they will not be able to deliver. And therefore, whether it is skilling, whether it is education, whether it is new areas which are to be covered, the digital technologies are going to play a very significant and important role. Is it okay? There are various digital ecosystems which are all being aware, and that is where many a times we talk about divide. Satellite communication has the least divide because satellite communication can reach to the nooks and corners in the remote forest areas, tribal areas, hilly areas very effectively, and therefore the channels like radio and Doordarshan will be very effective in delivering the educational content. But all said and done, it is one-way traffic. They will only receive. If they have a query and want to ask a question, there are difficulties. And therefore, what is important is reaching of the internet to the nooks and corners. India, for example, about 4 years ago, were very proud that the last village in the country was also electrified. I think we need to talk about every last village and every hamlet is going to be connected by high internet bandwidth fiber connectivity. I think that is the dream. About 2.5 lakh villages, 250,000 out of 650,000 villages are already connected, but there is a long way. Maybe the program like digital internet connectivity, which is done by BharatNet, in a couple of years' time will be in a position to reach the unreached in every corner of the country. Then comes the governance system. We need to reach out to them that they have to be empowered in order to know what are the facilities available and how can they really apply. And this awareness is also one of those things which is missing. And whether it is through the ERP systems of the universities or the public platforms and the various websites, we need to reach out to the unreached in the remotest possible places. That is also an ongoing thing. Then students should be knowing about various apps, technologies. How can we generate that interest amongst the students? Whether it is Wikipedia, search engines, all of these are available. But because students are not aware of them, they are not able to use it, even if you give the devices, even if you give the internet connectivity. Therefore, divide comes from variety of angles. The governments have to give digital devices, provide internet connectivity at very low cost or almost zero cost. In fact, I'm very happy that amongst all the countries of the world, the data charges in India are the lowest. And therefore, even a child in a remotest area with very low income can afford. But the smart devices, be it the laptop or a PC, some of the state governments are giving it to the girl students, some of them are giving to physically challenged students. How do we make access, equity as effectively as possible through the government schemes is a very important thing which is already happening in a big way. Next comes the various types of applications which are being developed. I'm very happy that students from undergraduate degree programs, maybe in first year, second year, they have been developing different types of apps which are useful for either for reservations, for applications, also for transfer of funds from one place to another place. If you remember, after the pandemic, the digital transactions in terms of finances, they are 40% of the world happening from India. And this is from not educated, but even a person who is in a remote village, who is selling vegetables to, on a platform, one who is doing coolie job, they are also using mobile apps in order to transfer money, take money under UPI. I think digitally, we all become capable by only practice. It is not necessary that there is a big training required. It's only the opportunity which is to be provided by making use of the apps. And I'm very happy that some of these engineering college students through Smart India Hackathon have been producing wonderful applications which are useful for the digital education. We have various schools and colleges where there are digital classrooms, there are infrastructures in terms of computers. Someone in the beginning said there are schools where computers are available, but they are used by only principal for administration purposes. We need to empower our students in order to make them available for them for usage, maybe 24/7. There are different applications and the digital framework which has been created in terms of NDR, National Digital Architecture Framework, as well as India 2.0 architecture, which will enable states as well as universities in order to create their own applications which are all interchangeable and talking to each other. We have the most important part, which was also talked about in most of the sessions, is about teacher training and how do we inculcate values amongst our students. I'm just reflecting two very important applications which we developed a couple of years ago and which has been a roaring success, is about student induction program and telling them about universal human values. And for this, taking teachers as the starting point, training of teachers in universal human values, and taking that forward in terms of students in the induction program, so that in the first 1 week, all the diverse group of students who join the institution, maybe from rural area or urban area, maybe from English medium schools or language medium schools, from a rich family or a poor family, they all become collaborators. They become close to each other. They understand each other's issues and problems. We talked about empathy in the session prior to our lunch. This empathy gets developed by self-introspection. You don't say that you have to do this, don't do this, but also allow the students to experience various facets of life, including various challenges which each one of them is facing. By playing that role, students get that empathy factor developed into them. And that's a very important starting point for the education in the future. And this is also done through the teacher education. We have several aspects in terms of digital ecosystem. I'm not going to read out all of them, but 3 or 4 of them which are very, very important for empowering our children are, first thing, we have connectivity of 1 Gbps in all higher educational institutions given by National Knowledge Network, NKN. Then comes the National Mission on Technology, which is empowering creation of the course content which is useful. So for a given institution, if they do not have a faculty member in a particular domain or an area, they should not be left out. This education is available right from 2005-06 onwards in terms of what are known as NPTEL lectures in an online mode. Moving forward, we all know that MOOCs are a powerful medium of transacting education in a large quantity, and we have our own indigenous MOOC platform where more than 2.5 million students, they have crossed that, taking the courses, while registered students who do not take courses for the course credit work, but only for learning, they have crossed 250 million. 300 million students are participating in this. And it is not just in our country, but more than about 100 odd countries are also utilizing the MOOC platform SWAYAM, which is already there. We are also concerned about those areas where technology has not reached in terms of internet, and that's why there are already 33 channels which are going to be increased to 260 TV channels, giving education content in not just English, but in all the Indian languages. Each language, each class will have a special direct-to-home TV channel, DTH, and which will empower a student from the remotest possible areas. There are also community service centers, what are known as CSCs, where student can come and then not only download the content, make use of it where internet is available. He can also ask, or she can also ask question to the faculty member for whatever the candidate or student has not understood. So this is real empowerment. We have an ERP system. We have National Digital Library with more than 300 million documents which are collected and put onto a library which is called National Digital Library, and all variety of digital content available free of cost. There is no charge for any one of these facilities which the government has created for anyone. Now to accept it and to take it, of course, earlier speakers, what they have talked about, the digital divide, that is being addressed by way of providing the digital devices, training of faculty members, training of students in usage of that, in terms of the connectivity, and that will overcome. If there is one way of overcoming the divide which exists in education, I think it is only the digital as well as the education through the internet which is going to create a level playing field, be it from a very remote rural area or an urban area. And some examples which we have found is the courses of SWAYAM, which are available free of cost. Some of the students in the remotest village of Arunachal Pradesh or Nagaland who have done it, they have got excellent jobs in firms like Google or Microsoft. Can you imagine empowerment that happens? And the TCS has stopped going to campuses for recruitment. They conduct their own tests and everyone takes online tests, and therefore they are reachable to every corner of the country. Otherwise, TCS would have not been able to recruit a person from a remote village in Tripura or in Arunachal Pradesh or in Jammu Kashmir, because they don't travel there. They would have otherwise gone to Bangalore, Chennai, Thiruvananthapuram, or Delhi, Chandigarh. But now a candidate from any place can attend their recruitment test, get selected, and be proud of that. I think these are all empowering things which are possible through this area. We have another very important thing which all we talked about is experiential learning. Experiential learning is very important. In classroom, many a times we get this opportunity because teacher is there physically available, he is observing the students. Which student enjoys what they can study from the eye movement, from the facial expressions, and a faculty is in a position, or teacher is in a position to guide a student. Some students learn by reading, some students learn by doing, some students learn by watching, some students learn by playing, and therefore the teacher is in a position to do all of that in a classroom environment. But how can technology enable this? Today we have sensors which capture the images and videos, and there are analytics which are possible to be engaged using tools like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning tools. The facial expression of a candidate, even in an online platform, can make sense about whether a student is understanding something. And depending on what the student has not understood, can we give him extra lectures on that topic, automatically giving certain videos to be made to watch by that student so that he learns those things. These possibilities never existed before to enrich the masses. Otherwise, in a classroom environment, if you want to increase gross enrollment ratio, the physical infrastructure required, the number of people required would be too high. And that kind of both expenditure is not possible, wherewithal is not possible. UNESCO member just now said that we need speed, scale, and how do we achieve that? And that can be achieved only through the use of technology in the most effective manner. We have an internship portal where more than 200,000 students have been given internship every year. They get it online, opportunities from various industries, small and big, startups, and they get practical exposure to what all is possible. There are three other areas where we have been working very hard. One is the school education. In the school education, we have seen how Diksha platform is engaging. All of you who are teachers know that Diksha has the largest base of number of users anywhere in the world. In higher education, we have this Swayam platform. Similarly, in the skill domain, we have digital skilling program for skilling of 300 million students. And this is a very robust platform where students can get online variety of skills being given, and some of them being in a physical mode. Can you imagine that for training in welding, you require both a lot of equipment, cost involved, but using technology, one can practice hundreds of times, and then on an actual welding machine, you go for only half an hour and become an expert in welder. And that is a possibility which is in the form of what we call skilling. We have developed what is known as National Credit Framework, which is right from school to the highest education. Credits earned by the students are all located there. There are levels of credits, right from school to the high school to vocational school. And transmission or movement of students from one domain of education to another domain of education has become smooth through the process of accumulated credits being used elsewhere. And this is what is going to be more empowering, because many a times student comes into one domain of education and finds that he or she is not fit for that, doesn't like it. If they want to shift it, the national education policy has allowed for multiple exit, multiple entry. All of that is possible to be implemented through National Credit Framework, which has been assigned, all the credits being accumulated into what is known as academic bank of credits, and national academic depository. And this will also empower in two other ways. A student from one particular place, when he goes to another place and wants to take an admission, all the certificates are today carried physically in order to show, and there is a long queue outside, whether it is interviews, whether it is the admissions in a higher education institution. All this verification is not required because it is digitally signed and verified document available on the portal. What is required is only student's registration number, which is based on a unique ID which is created by India, one of the largest in the whole world, Aadhaar. And using Aadhaar, if a uniqueness of the student is established, everything that a student earns in terms of micro-credentials to individual certificate or any learning, formal, informal, can get deposited there. It will become the CV, permanent lifelong learning CV of that candidate, which is available for sharing through APIs. One organization can share the APIs, and then you can collect all of that information. A student need not even fill the same form again and again. The data is collected automatically from the educational institution where the candidate has studied, and it will transmit to the new institution where the candidate is likely to go. So you can make what we call ease of doing business. Ease of doing business in education is possible through the mechanism of what we call registries, depositing all of these credentials into a single place and making use of that. And all of that is already happening. It is not that it is futuristic. It is all in place. Number of institutions who are making use of it are still limited because of, as I said, creating awareness. The places like this where awareness gets created, you start looking at the platform, you start joining the platform, more and more students will start getting benefit of that. More and more institutions also get used to it. We are developing, that's why, an education ecosystem registry. This is very important for many institutions. We have different processes for educational institutions to get approval, annually submit the data for continuing to get the approval. We also have a system of accreditation, program accreditation by NBA, and then institutional accreditation by NAC. We have data to be collected for ranking of the institutions. And an institution is required to give at least similar or almost same data 6 to 7 times in a year. And many a times the data submitted is at variance and we start suspecting the data. So one single source of truth about the data of an institution, about the number of students, the faculty, number of research publications, number of patents filed, why should it be given 7 times, 8 times in a year by the same institution to different agencies? This philosophy of one nation, one data is going to have what we call data collection system from all the institutions in the country only once in a year. And they will all be free of doing the same exercise 7 times and getting into trouble from various agencies. And then whether the data given is truthful or fake data also will be identified through various mechanisms of that of crowdsourcing. You ask the whole data being available on the public platform, people will view it and say that this institute is claiming wrong things. They don't have 200 faculty, but they are claiming 200 faculty. Then there can be an investigation and a lethal punishment can be given to those who are faltering onto the system. I think all of these are possible through the use of technology in terms of engaging, in terms of empowering, and therefore we have all gone ahead with that. We have a digital university going to come immediately. Last. Digital university is one where it is in the form of hub and spoke model. A national level hub will be there, and all the universities in the country, private or government, whether it is edutech companies, whether it is individuals who would like to give a courses, they will all be spokes. And the students can register for any course of their interest And all those examinations will be held online, and such students who get those credits will get accommodated into the academic bank of credits, and a degree is awarded by not joining a single university but multiple universities at the same time. So empowering to get best education from the best possible source. And what we often talk about, anytime education, anywhere education, any teacher, from any teacher education, the best possible course education is all possible through the digital transformation. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Many, many thanks to Sahasrabudhe for his fascinating words and talking about the great steps taken forward in digital transformation, especially in the education. I would like to request our Dean, Rajendra Kumar Sir, to please give the memento to Sahasrabudhe. Please, please come. Sir, we are truly honored to have you here. Many thanks. Now, I share a small request to everybody. We will have our valedictory function starting shortly, within the next 10 minutes. So I would like to request everybody to please keep seated. The Honorable Governor of Kerala has already arrived at the hotel, so should be arriving here shortly. So again, requesting your patience. Everybody please stay seated.